The Vampire King's hand trembled the first time he held her pen, and Elara Everhart knew in that moment she had made a terrible mistake, not in teaching him, but in believing she could walk away unscathed once the lessons ended. She had been working at the university library for 3 years, cataloging ancient texts in the basement archives, where dust motes danced in thin shafts of artificial light. The pay was modest, but the solitude suited her. Books made sense. People rarely did. So when the new night curator arrived with skin like moonlight and hair the color of fresh snow, she told herself his strangeness was none of her business. The university hired plenty of eccentric academics. She kept her head down and her questions to herself. His name was Pyrrhus Quillon, and he moved through the library stacks with the fluid grace of someone who had spent centuries learning to make no sound. Elara noticed because she had spent years learning to listen. Her mother had been deaf, and though Elara herself could hear perfectly, she had grown up in a world where observation mattered more than words. She saw the way Pyrrhus never arrived before sunset. She saw how he wore gloves even in summer. She saw the careful distance he maintained from the other staff, the way his eyes pale as winter ice tracked movement with predatory focus. She saw, and she said nothing, because the world was full of strange people, and she had learned long ago that survival meant minding your own business. The night everything changed, she was alone in the archives, translating a collection of 15th-century letters. The language was an obscure Slavic dialect her grandmother had taught her, more out of stubbornness than practicality. Her grandmother had refused to let the old words die, had pressed them into Elara's memory like flowers between pages. Now those words were Elara's specialty, the reason the university kept her employed despite her lack of formal credentials. She heard his footsteps before she saw him, felt his presence like a change in air pressure. You read the old tongue. His voice was not a question. It carried an accent she could not place, something that predated modern borders. Elara looked up from her work. Pyrrhus stood at the edge of the light, and for the first time she noticed how carefully he positioned himself in shadow, how the fluorescent bulbs seemed to bother him. "I do," she said. "I require your assistance." She should have refused, should have made an excuse about deadlines and policy. Instead, she heard herself ask, "With what?" He moved closer, and she caught the scent of old paper and something darker, like turned earth. From within his coat, he produced a leather journal, its binding cracked with age. When he set it on her desk, she noticed his hands, pale as the rest of him, elegant, with long fingers that suggested an artist or a musician. No gloves tonight. She wondered why. "I cannot read this," he said quietly. "I need to know what it says." Elara opened the journal. The script was immediately familiar, the same dialect she had been translating, written in a careful hand. The entries were dated. The earliest was from 1743. Her mouth went dry. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "It belonged to someone I knew, long ago." His pale eyes met hers, and she saw something ancient move behind them, something that had witnessed the turn of centuries. "I was never taught to read her language. By the time I thought to learn, she was gone." The truth settled over Elara like frost. She knew what he was. She had known, perhaps from the beginning, in the part of her mind that still believed in the stories her grandmother told. The warnings about the pale ones who walked after dark, who lived in the spaces between heartbeats. "You are asking me to teach you," she said. "Yes." "Why now? If this journal is as old as it appears, you have had centuries to find a translator." Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe. Regret. "Because I was a fool. Because I thought I had forever. Because I did not understand that some things, once lost, can never be recovered." He paused. "I want to read her words myself, not filtered through a stranger's voice. I want to know her as she was, in the language she chose. I want to understand what I failed to understand when it mattered." Elara had spent her whole life around words. She knew how they could wound, could heal, could bridge impossible distances. She knew what it meant to speak a language no one else remembered, to carry words that would die when you did. "I will teach you," she said, "but not here, not in the university. If we are going to do this, we do it properly." Relief washed across his features, so human in its intensity that for a moment she forgot what he was. "Name your price." "No price, just a condition." She closed the journal carefully. "You tell me the truth, about what you are, about why this matters so much. I will not teach secrets to someone who keeps all their own." He studied her for a long moment. Then slowly, deliberately, he smiled. His teeth were white and sharp and utterly inhuman. "Agreed," Pyrrhus said, "though I suspect you will regret the bargain." They began meeting 3 nights a week in her small apartment above a bakery. The scent of rising dough and cinnamon filled the stairwell, comforting and ordinary, a strange counterpoint to the vampire king who sat at her kitchen table practicing letters like a child. He had been truthful about his title. Pyrrhus Quillon was not merely old or powerful, he was the sovereign of the East Coast vampire territories, a position he had held for nearly 400 years. He commanded a court of immortals, enforced ancient laws, and maintained the careful balance between his kind and the human world they moved through unseen. Kings did not bow, they did not beg, they certainly did not struggle with basic grammar under the patient eye of a 26-year-old librarian. Yet here he sat, night after night, his pale head bent over her grandmother's old textbooks, forming letters with a concentration that bordered on reverence. "Your handwriting is terrible," Elara told him on the 5th lesson, watching him butcher a simple conjugation. "I learned to write in Latin and Greek," he replied without looking up. "This alphabet feels wrong in my hand." "Your hand has had 4 centuries to adjust. Try again." He did. The pen looked absurdly delicate in his grip, and she noticed how careful he was not to snap it. Vampire strength was no myth. She had seen him move her heavy oak table with one hand, effortless as breathing, yet he handled her teaching materials like they might shatter. "Tell me about her," Elara said suddenly, "the woman who wrote the journal." Pyrrhus set down the pen. For a long moment he said nothing, his pale eyes fixed on something only he could see. "Her name was Nadja. She was a village healer. I met her in 1740, when my kind still lived openly among humans in the remote places. She saved one of my court from a poison that would have weakened him unto death." He paused. "She was brilliant, stubborn. She refused to fear me even when I gave her every reason to. And she kept her journal in her grandmother's tongue because it was private, sacred, the language of women and home and things not meant for outsiders." "You loved her." "I did not realize it until too late." His voice was quiet. "I thought I was immortal. I thought I had time. I did not ask her to teach me her words because I was arrogant, because I believed my language, my world, was the one that mattered. By the time I understood my mistake, she was dying. 63 years old, which felt like a heartbeat to me but was her entire life. She asked me to read her journal after she was gone, to understand her fully, the way she had tried to understand me. I promised I would. But you never did. I could not. I tried to teach myself, but the language defeated me. I hired translators, but their words felt wrong, hollow. So I kept the journal, and I told myself I would learn eventually, that I had forever." He looked at her then, and she saw the weight of centuries in his eyes. "I did not expect to still be failing at the task 300 years later." Elara felt something crack open in her chest. She knew about promises to the dead, about words that outlived the speakers, about the particular grief of a language dying. "We will make sure you keep your promise," she said firmly, "even if it takes years." "I do not have years." He spoke gently, as if explaining something to a child. "I have enemies. My position is not as secure as it once was. There are younger vampires who believe the old ways are obsolete, who want to expose our kind, to rule openly rather than from shadow. They challenge me, and eventually, one of them will succeed. So you want to read the journal before you die. Before I am destroyed, yes. We do not die easily, but we can be ended." He picked up the pen again. "Which is why I am grateful for your patience, even when my handwriting offends you." She almost laughed. Instead, she leaned forward and adjusted his grip on the pen. His hand was cool beneath hers, not cold exactly, but absent of human warmth. She did not pull away. "Start with the basics," she said. "Your name. Write it in the old tongue." He formed the letters slowly. The Cyrillic alphabet fought him, but he persisted, his jaw set with determination. When he finished, he had produced a passable rendering of Pyrrhus in her grandmother's language. "Good," Elara said. "Now write mine." She spelled it out for him, letter by letter, watched as he copied the characters with that same intense focus he brought to everything. Her name emerged on the page in his uncertain hand. Elara. He stared at it for a long moment. "Again," he said. "You already wrote it once. I want to write it correctly." So she guided him through it again, and again. Each time his letters grew more confident, more sure. By the 10th repetition, her name flowed from his pen almost beautifully. He set down the pen and looked at what he had created. Her name, written over and over down the page in progressively improving script. "I will not erase these," Pyrrhus said quietly. "If that is acceptable." "Why would you erase them?" "Because you are my teacher. I should not—" He stopped, drew a breath he did not need. "It is inappropriate for me to keep your name like this, like something I own, something I have claimed." Elara's heart was beating too fast. She knew she should agree, should tell him to use different words for practice, safe words that meant nothing. "Keep them," she heard herself say. "They are just practice. They do not mean anything." They both knew she was lying. The lessons continued. 3 nights a week became 4, then 5. Pyrrhus was a dedicated student, and the language began to unlock for him. He progressed from letters to words, from words to simple sentences. Elara brought him children's books in the old tongue, stories her grandmother had read to her. He read them haltingly at first, then with growing confidence. And he kept writing her name. At the beginning of each lesson, he would write Elara at the top of his practice page. He never erased it. "You are making excellent progress," she told him 2 months into their work. "At this rate, you will be reading the journal by winter. Will you help me when I do? I may need assistance with the more difficult passages." "Of course." He looked at her across the kitchen table. "You have been generous with your time. I should compensate you." "I told you I do not want payment." "Nevertheless, you spend your evenings teaching me when you could be—" He gestured vaguely. "Living your life, seeing friends, pursuing romance." Elara laughed, short and sharp. "I have no romance to pursue, and my friends are mostly books. You are not taking me from anything important." "I find that difficult to believe." "Believe it. I am not—" She struggled for the words. "I do not fit easily into the normal world. I never have. People find me strange, too quiet, too intense about the wrong things. The only person who ever really understood me was my grandmother, and she has been gone for 5 years." Pyrrhus was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I am sorry for your loss." "Thank you." She met his eyes. "Is that why you want to read the journal so badly? Because Nadia understood you?" "Yes, and because I failed to understand her. I was king even then, accustomed to being the most important person in any room. I did not think to learn her language because I assumed she would always be there to translate, to bend to my world." He touched the journal, which he brought to every lesson. "I want to be different now, even if it is 300 years too late. It is never too late to keep a promise. I hope you are right." Something had shifted between them. Elara felt it in the way their hands brushed when he passed her papers, in the way his pale eyes followed her movements around the small apartment, in the careful distance he maintained, as if afraid of standing too close. She told herself it meant nothing. He was a vampire king. She was a human librarian. They existed in different worlds. But every night he wrote her name, and every night he left it on the page like a prayer. 3 months into their lessons, violence found them. Elara was closing the library when she felt the wrongness. The parking lot was too empty, too quiet. The streetlights seemed dimmer than usual. She quickened her pace toward her car, keys already in hand. The three figures materialized from shadow. They moved with the same liquid grace as Pyrrhus, and their skin held that same marble pallor. Vampires. Young ones, she thought. Their eyes held hunger rather than the careful control Pyrrhus always maintained. "You are the human teaching the king," the tallest one said. His accent was different from Pyrrhus's, more modern. American. "We have been watching you." Elara's grip tightened on her keys. "I do not want trouble. Neither do we. We simply want you to stop the lessons." "Why?" "Because Pyrrhus Quillon clings to the old ways. He hides in shadow when we should rule in light. He reads ancient books when he should be leading us into a new age." The vampire smiled, showing too many teeth. "And he has become distracted, soft. He spends his nights with a human woman learning a dead language instead of governing his territory. That is his choice to make. It is a poor choice, and you enable it." The vampire took a step closer. "Stop teaching him. Refuse his requests. Make him remember what he is." "No." She saw the blow coming, but could not move fast enough. The vampire's hand cracked across her face with enough force to snap her head to the side. She tasted blood. The parking lot tilted. "That was a warning," the vampire said. "Next time." He never finished the sentence. Pyrrhus was simply there, moving faster than Elara's eyes could follow. One moment, the three young vampires were standing over her. The next, Pyrrhus had the tall one by the throat, lifted off the ground, his face transformed into something terrifying and other. His eyes had gone black from edge to edge. His teeth were bared, no longer even remotely human. "You touched her!" His voice was barely recognizable, low and cold and absolutely lethal. "My king, we meant only to—" Pyrrhus threw him. The vampire hit a concrete pillar 20 feet away hard enough to crack it. The other two tried to run. They did not make it far. Pyrrhus moved between them like a storm, and Elara heard the sound of breaking bone. Then he was kneeling beside her, and his face was his own again. Concerned, almost gentle. "Are you hurt?" His cool fingers touched her cheek where the vampire had struck her. "Elara, look at me. Are you badly injured?" "I am fine," she managed. Her face throbbed and her heart was trying to escape her chest, but she was alive. Just startled. "They will never touch you again. I swear it." He helped her to her feet with extraordinary care. "Can you walk? I will take you home." "What about them?" She looked at the three vampires. They were alive but clearly in pain, sprawled across the parking lot in various states of damage. "They will heal, and then they will face judgment for raising a hand against you." His voice went hard. "No one harms what is mine." Elara's breath caught. "I am not yours." Pyrrhus went very still. "Forgive me. I misspoke. I meant only that you are under my protection. You have been since the first night you agreed to teach me. I should have made that clearer to my court." He looked at the broken vampires with something like contempt. "I have been neglecting my duties, allowing dissent to fester. This is my fault. They said you were distracted, that you spend too much time with me. They are young and stupid. They understand nothing of what matters." "And what matters?" He looked at her, just looked, with those pale ancient eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. "Keeping promises," he said finally. "Honoring what we have lost. Learning to be better than we were. You have reminded me of these things. That is worth more than any amount of political posturing." He took her home, walked her up the stairs to her apartment, and checked every room before allowing her to enter. The three young vampires had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. The casual violence, the reminder that Pyrrhus, for all his careful courtesy, was part of a world that operated by rules she did not understand. "I should assign you guards," he said, standing in her kitchen as if uncertain whether to stay or go. "The court knows about you now. Others may try to use you against me." "I do not want guards." "Elara, if you assign me guards, the university will ask questions. My neighbors will notice. I will become a spectacle." She shook her head. "I will not live that way." Then let me protect you myself. You cannot be with me every moment. I can try. He took a step toward her. Those vampires were right about one thing. I have been distracted. I have been spending my nights here when I should be maintaining order in my territory. But I find I do not care. These hours with you matter more than courtly politics. Your safety matters more than their ambitions. You barely know me. I know you are patient when you have every right to be frustrated. I know you care deeply about preserving languages that the world has forgotten. I know you see value in keeping promises to the dead. His voice dropped. And I know that when I write your name, I do not want to erase it. Ever. The kitchen felt too small suddenly, too warm. Elara could hear her own heartbeat, could smell the cinnamon from the bakery below, could feel the weight of his attention like a physical thing. Pyrrhus, she whispered. This is not wise. I have lived 4 centuries being wise. It is profoundly overrated. He raised one hand, slowly, giving her time to move away. When she did not, he touched her face where the bruise was already forming. His fingers were gentle. I am sorry you were hurt because of me. It was not your fault. It was. I should have anticipated this, should have protected you better. His jaw tightened. I will not make that mistake again. What will you do to them, those 3 vampires? What would you have me do? Elara blinked. You are asking my opinion? You are the one they harmed. You have a right to determine the consequences. She thought about it, about the casual way they had struck her, about the contempt in their voices when they spoke of the old ways. But she also thought about mercy, about cycles of violence, about what her grandmother would have counseled. Exile them, she said, from your territory. Make them leave and not return, but do not kill them. They expect execution for raising hands against a king's. He stopped. Against someone under my protection. Then surprise them. Show them you are better than they believe, that the old ways include justice, not just vengeance. He studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled, small and genuine. You are a remarkable woman, Elara Everhart. I am a librarian who translates dead languages. I am profoundly unremarkable. You are wrong, but I will not argue the point tonight. He stepped back, restoring the careful distance. I will post guards outside your building, discreet ones. You will not notice them, but they will ensure no one else attempts to harm you. Pyrrhus, this is not negotiable. Your safety matters. He moved toward the door. I will return tomorrow night for our lesson, if you still wish to continue teaching me. Why would I not wish to continue? Because you have seen what I am now, what my world contains. You have every reason to tell me to leave and never return. Elara crossed the kitchen, stood close enough to see the fine lines around his eyes, the weight he carried in the set of his shoulders. Close enough to matter. Come back tomorrow, she said. We have a lot of work left to do. Relief washed across his features, so intense it was almost painful to witness. Thank you. He left quietly, moving like shadow down her stairs. Elara locked the door behind him and stood in her small kitchen, touching her bruised face and wondering what she had gotten herself into. The lessons took on new intensity after that night. Pyrrhus arrived earlier and stayed later. His progress accelerated, as if the attack had lit a fire under his determination. Within another month he was reading simple passages from the journal, haltingly but successfully. Elara sat beside him and helped with the difficult words, and together they began to uncover Nadia's story. She had been a complicated woman, sharp-tongued and generous by turns. The journal entries detailed her work as a healer, her observations of the natural world, her frustrations with village politics. And woven through it all were references to Pyrrhus, the Pale Lord, the king who visited her cottage to check on his injured courtier and stayed to argue philosophy. The immortal who thought himself above human concerns, but who listened when she spoke. She cared for you, Elara said one night, reading over his shoulder. I did not realize how much. Pyrrhus's finger traced a line of text. Here, she writes about teaching me her methods for treating fevers. I thought she was simply being educational. But she says, he paused, translating carefully. She says she wanted me to carry her knowledge forward, to remember her healing after she was gone. She knew you would outlive her. Of course, but I did not think about what that meant. I did not consider how it would feel to watch her age while I remained unchanging. He turned the page. I was a fool. You were immortal. How could you understand mortality? I should have tried harder. They sat in silence for a while. Then Elara said quietly, she would be glad you are reading this now, that you kept your promise even if it took 300 years. Do you truly believe that? Yes, words matter, especially words we leave behind. She wanted you to know her fully, and now you do. That is what matters. Pyrrhus closed the journal carefully. I am nearly finished. Another few weeks and I will have read every entry. That is good progress. Yes. He did not sound happy about it. Which means our lessons will conclude soon. You will have fulfilled your part of our bargain. Elara's chest tightened. She had not let herself think about what would happen when the journal was complete. Had not considered a return to her quiet life, her empty apartment, her evenings alone with books instead of this. Him. The strange friendship they had built across the impossible divide of human and vampire. I suppose they will, she said. Unless, he met her eyes. Unless you would be willing to continue. There are other texts in the old tongue I would like to read. I could commission translations, but I would prefer... He stopped, started again. I would prefer your company, if you are amenable. You want to keep taking lessons. I want to keep seeing you. The lessons are simply a convenient excuse. Her breath caught. Pyrrhus, I am aware this is inappropriate. You are human, I am not. The differences between us are... He gestured helplessly. Vast, possibly insurmountable. You deserve someone who can walk with you in daylight, who can grow old beside you, who can offer you a normal life. And if I do not want normal, then you are as much a fool as I am. But he smiled when he said it. I am Vampire King Elara. My world is dangerous. My enemies are numerous. I can offer you protection and resources, but I cannot offer you safety, not truly. There will always be threats, always vampires who see you as a weakness to exploit. Like the three in the parking lot. Like them, and worse, much worse. He leaned forward. I exiled them, as you asked, but others have already risen to take their place. The challenges to my authority are increasing. There may come a night when I am not fast enough or strong enough to protect you. So you want me to walk away now, to protect myself. I want you to understand what you would be choosing. If you chose to continue this, he gestured between them. Whatever this is becoming. Elara thought about her life before Pyrrhus. The quiet evenings, the safe routine, the careful walls she had built between herself and the world. She had been content, she supposed. Not happy exactly, but not unhappy either. Just existing, waiting for nothing in particular. I want to continue the lessons, she said, and I want to understand what is happening between us, even if it is complicated, even if it is dangerous. You should not choose danger for my sake. I am choosing it for my own sake. Because these past months have been the first time in years I have felt truly alive. Because you listen when I talk about grammar and dead languages. Because you write my name and refuse to erase it. She reached across the table and took his hand. It was cool beneath hers, steady. Because I think I am falling in love with you, and I would rather face that honestly than pretend it is not happening. Pyrrhus went utterly still. For a long moment he simply stared at their joined hands. Then he lifted her fingers to his lips and kissed them with a gentleness that made her ache. I do not deserve you, he said against her skin. Probably not, but you are going to try to be worthy anyway. Every day, for as long as you allow me. He kissed her then, properly, and Elara discovered that vampire kings could be infinitely gentle when they chose. His mouth was cool and careful against hers, holding back the full force of his strength. She leaned into him and felt him shudder. When they finally broke apart, his eyes had gone that depthless black again. I need to leave, he said roughly. Before I forget myself. What if I do not want you to leave? Elara. Her name was a prayer and a warning. I am vampire. I am dangerous. If I lose control, you will not. You cannot know that. I know you spent 4 months learning verb conjugations to keep a promise to a dead woman. I know you exiled 3 vampires instead of killing them because I asked you to. I know you write my name like it is something sacred. She cupped his face in both hands. I trust you. Then you are braver than I am. But he did not pull away. If we do this, we do it carefully, slowly. I will not risk harming you. Agreed. They set new rules that night, boundaries and safeguards. He would tell her when his control was fraying. She would listen when he said he needed distance. They would take things at a pace that felt safe for both of them. And through it all, they kept reading the journal together. Nadia's entries grew more personal near the end. She wrote about her aging body, about the pain in her joints and the way her eyesight was failing. She wrote about Pyrrhus's visits, how he sat with her for longer and longer each time, how he seemed to be trying to memorize her. She wrote about knowing she was dying and about making peace with it. The final entry was dated 3 days before her death. I read it, Pyrrhus said quietly. They were sitting together on Elara's couch, the journal open between them. Years ago, when I first received the book, I had it translated, but I want to read it myself now, in her words. Elara nodded. She watched as he slowly worked through the text, his lips forming the sounds of her grandmother's tongue. The passage was short. Nadia's handwriting had grown shaky. When he finished, he was silent for a long moment. She forgives me, he said finally, for not learning her language, for being too proud and foolish to meet her in her own world. She writes that she understands, that she loves me anyway. He closed his eyes. She should not have forgiven me. I wasted the time we had. But you learned from it. You are different now. Because of her, and because of you. He turned to look at Elara. You have taught me more than a language. You have taught me to see value in what I dismissed, to honor what I do not fully understand, to be humble enough to learn. I just taught you grammar. You taught me how to love properly, how to pay attention, how to make someone else's world as important as my own. He touched her face. Thank you. You are welcome. He kissed her then, deep and slow, and Elara felt the careful leash of his control, felt how he held himself back even as his hands trembled against her. She understood. He was Vampire King. He had lived for centuries. He could hurt her so easily if he forgot himself. But he never did. Even when she pulled him closer, even when the kisses grew heated, he maintained that iron discipline. And she loved him for it, for the care he took, for the way he treated her like something precious. I want to show you my world, Pyrrhus said later, when they lay tangled together on the couch. The court, the territory I govern. I want you to understand all of what you have chosen. When? Tomorrow night, if you are willing. I am willing. He arrived the next evening in a car that probably cost more than her apartment building. The driver was vampire, pale and silent and utterly professional. Pyrrhus helped Elara into the back seat with courtly manners that seemed natural to him. Where are we going? She asked. Beneath the city. My court maintains holdings in the old subway tunnels, sections that were closed to the public decades ago. He took her hand. It will be strange, different from anything you have experienced. If you wish to leave at any point, simply tell me. They drove to an abandoned station in the old part of the city. Pyrrhus led her through a maintenance door and down stairs that descended far deeper than any subway platform. The air grew cool and still. Somewhere in the darkness she heard water dripping. Then they turned a corner and Elara stopped breathing. The chamber was vast, cathedral vast, with soaring ceilings held up by pillars that looked older than the city above. Chandeliers hung from chains, their light golden and warm. Tapestries covered the walls, medieval and beautiful. And everywhere, moving with that distinctive liquid grace, were vampires. They turned when Pyrrhus entered. Every pale face swiveled toward him with a synchronicity that was almost frightening. Then, as one, they bowed. My king, someone said. a woman with silver hair and eyes like chips of amber. You honor us with your presence. Lady Isadora. Pyrrhus inclined his head slightly. I bring a guest. Elara Everhart. She is under my personal protection. Any insult to her is an insult to me. Make sure the court understands. Isadora's gaze raked over Elara with open curiosity. As you command, my king. Welcome, Miss Everhart. We are pleased to receive you. Elara managed a nod. She was acutely aware of being the only human in a room full of predators, of being soft and breakable in a space built for immortals. Pyrrhus kept her close as he moved through the chamber. He introduced her to members of his court, to vampires who had lived for centuries and carried titles like seneschal and marshal and keeper of the archives. They were all polite, all careful, but she felt their attention like weight, like they were measuring her, judging her worth. They are trying to understand why you matter to me, Pyrrhus said quietly when they had a moment alone. I have never brought a human here before, never shown this kind of favor. Do I matter to you? More than I know how to express. He touched her hand briefly. Which is why some of them will resent you, see you as a distraction or a weakness. I need you to be careful, Elara. My protection extends far, but it is not absolute. There are those in this court who would harm you to make a point. Why bring me here then? Because I want you to understand what you are part of now. Because hiding you away would only make the threats worse. He looked out at the assembled vampires. And because I am tired of keeping the things I value locked in shadow, I want my court to see you, to understand that you are important, that hurting you would be the gravest mistake they could make. A challenge, Elara realized. He was making a statement, drawing a line. She should have been frightened, but instead she felt a strange warmth. He was willing to risk political capital for her, to make his care for her public and undeniable. Dance with me, Pyrrhus said suddenly. What? He gestured to the center of the chamber where space had been cleared. Music was playing, something old and stately that she did not recognize. Dance with me, let them see us together. I am not a very good dancer. Neither am I. We will be terrible together. He smiled. Please. She let him lead her onto the floor. His hand settled at her waist, and he guided her into the steps, slow and careful. Around them, other vampires were watching. Elara tried not to think about it, focused instead on Pyrrhus, on the cool steadiness of his grip, on the way he watched her like she was the only thing in the room that mattered. You are doing well, he murmured. I stepped on your foot twice. I did not notice. She laughed quietly. Liar. Perhaps. His thumb traced small circles against her hip. Thank you for being here, for trying to understand my world. Thank you for showing it to me. They danced until the music ended. Then Pyrrhus led her to the edge of the chamber, to a corridor that branched off into darkness. There is one more thing I wish to show you, he said. My private chambers, if you are comfortable. Her heart kicked up. All right. His rooms were nothing like she expected. She had imagined something gothic and dark, all heavy furniture and brooding atmosphere. Instead, she found a space that was almost austere in its simplicity. Clean lines, comfortable furniture, bookshelves covering every wall, stuffed with volumes in dozens of languages, a desk with neat stacks of papers. This is where I work, Pyrrhus said. Where I read and write when I need solitude. Elara moved to the desk, saw the papers covered in careful handwriting, recognized the alphabet of her grandmother's tongue. He had been practicing even outside their lessons. And there, at the top of the first page, he had written her name, Elara. She touched the letters. You really do not erase it. Never. He came to stand beside her. Your name is the first thing I learned to write in the old tongue. It will be the last thing I forget. Pyrrhus. She turned to face him. What are we doing, really? Where can this possibly go? I do not know, he admitted. I have never, he gestured helplessly. I have lived for 4 centuries. I have taken lovers. I have had companions. But I have never felt like this. Never wanted someone the way I want you. It terrifies me. Why? Because I am immortal and you are not. Because in 60 years you will be gone and I will still be here, writing your name and remembering. His jaw tightened. Because I am choosing heartbreak, knowingly, willingly, and I cannot seem to stop myself. Elara understood then the full weight of what he was offering, what he was choosing. An immortal did not love lightly, did not give his heart knowing it would be shattered by time, but he was doing it anyway, for her. There are ways, she said slowly, aren't there, for humans to become vampire? Yes, the turning. It is painful and dangerous and not everyone survives. He shook his head. I will not ask that of you, will not risk your life or force you into immortality you did not choose. That is a decision only you can make, and not for many years. Not until you have lived a full human life and know what you would be giving up. But it is possible. In theory, but Elara. He cupped her face in both hands. I will not love you only if you promise to become vampire. I love you now, as you are, human and mortal, and absolutely perfect. If you choose to remain human for all your days, I will cherish every moment we have, and when you are gone, I will keep your memory the way I kept Nadja's, with honor and grief and gratitude. Tears pricked her eyes. That is the saddest thing anyone has ever said to me. I am sorry. Do not be. She kissed him, tasting salt and something sweeter. I am choosing you too, for however long we have. That is enough. He made a sound low in his throat and pulled her closer. The kiss deepened, and Elara felt the careful control start to fray. His hands tightened on her waist. His mouth moved to her throat, lips brushing the pulse point there. She felt his teeth graze her skin and shivered. I should stop, he said roughly. What if I do not want you to stop? Elara. Her name was Ragged. I am vampire. If I lose control. You will not. She tangled her fingers in his white hair. I trust you. You should not. But I do. He pulled back, breathing hard despite not needing air. His eyes were black, fully dilated. If we continue, I will want... He stopped. I will want to bite you, to taste you. It is instinct. I can control it, but the desire will be there. Would it hurt me? Not if I am careful. A vampire's bite can bring pleasure, but it creates a bond, a connection. You would feel what I feel, and I would take your blood. A small amount, not enough to harm you, but still. It is intimate, more intimate than anything else I could offer. Elara considered this. The idea should have frightened her. Instead, she felt curious, wanting. And if I said yes? Then I would make very sure I did not take too much, that I did not hurt you, that you enjoyed every moment. His thumb traced her lower lip. But you do not have to say yes. We can wait. We can take this slowly. I have spent my whole life being careful, being slow. I do not want to be careful with you. Elara, I want this. I want you. All of it. She met his black eyes steadily. Show me what it means to be loved by a vampire king. He kissed her then like he was drowning and she was air, backed her toward the bed with deliberate intent. His hands were careful even as his mouth turned demanding. He undressed her slowly, reverently, and she did the same for him. His body was pale and perfect and inhuman in its flawlessness. She traced the lines of him and felt him shudder beneath her touch. When he finally lowered her to the bed, she was already trembling. He kissed his way down her throat, her collarbone lower. Took his time until she was gasping. Then he returned to her neck, to the place where her pulse beat strongest. Tell me if you want me to stop, he whispered against her skin. Do not stop. She felt his teeth pierce her skin, sharp and quick. Then pleasure, rolling through her in waves so intense she cried out. She could feel him, suddenly. Feel his devotion, his wonder, his tightly leashed control. Feel how much he wanted her and how terrified he was of harming her. It was overwhelming and perfect and utterly right. He took only a little, enough to taste. Then he sealed the wound with his tongue and held her as she shook apart in his arms. I love you, he said against her hair. I will love you until the stars go cold. Do you understand? Yes. She turned in his embrace. I love you too. They made love slowly, carefully, and Elara learned that vampire kings could be gentle even in passion, that centuries of experience translated to patience and skill, that immortal strength could be leashed in service of mortal pleasure. Afterward, they lay tangled together, and Pyrrhus traced idle patterns on her skin. I want forever with you, he said quietly, but I will take whatever you can give me. What if I want forever too? Then we will find a way, when you are ready, if you are ever ready. He kissed her forehead. But tonight, let us simply be here, together. Let that be enough. It is more than enough. They stayed in his chambers until dawn approached. Then he drove her home through empty streets, his hand warm in hers the entire way. The next weeks were the happiest of Elara's life. She split her time between her small apartment and Pyrrhus's court beneath the city. She met more vampires, learned more about their society. Some were welcoming, others were coldly polite. A few were openly hostile, though none dared act on it while Pyrrhus was watching. She continued her work at the library, though now she had guards, discreet ones as promised. She only noticed them because she knew to look. Pyrrhus took no chances with her safety, and every night they read together. They finished Nadia's journal and moved on to other texts. Pyrrhus's fluency in the old tongue grew until he could read almost as well as Elara. But still, at the beginning of each lesson, he wrote her name at the top of the page. Still, he refused to erase it. You have quite a collection now, she teased one evening, looking at the stack of papers covered in her name. I am building an archive, he replied seriously, so that in 300 years, when my hand has forgotten how to form these letters, I will have evidence that I once knew, that you once taught me. That is assuming you forget. I will not forget you, but handwriting fades, memory becomes uncertain. I want proof. He touched the papers gently. I want to be able to look at these and remember exactly how I felt the first time I wrote your name. The wonder of it. She kissed him then, because what else could she do in the face of such devotion? But happiness never lasted forever, especially not in a vampire court. The challenge came on a cold night in November. Elara was in Pyrrhus's chambers, reading while he attended to court business. She heard the commotion before she saw it. Raised voices, the sound of furniture breaking. She ran to the door. Pyrrhus was in the main chamber, facing down a vampire she had never seen before. He was tall and pale like all of them, but younger. His eyes held rage. You have grown weak, the stranger was saying. You hide underground and play at reading children's books while our kind suffers. The hunters grow bolder. The humans encroach on our territory. And you do nothing because you are too busy courting a mortal woman. Careful, Constantine, Pyrrhus said quietly. You are very close to saying something you cannot take back. I challenge you. By the old laws, by right of blood, I challenge you for the crown. Constantine bared his teeth. Unless you are too much of a coward to fight. The chamber went utterly silent. Every vampire stopped moving. Elara felt her heart drop. You know what a challenge means, Pyrrhus said. One of us will not leave this room alive. I know. I am willing to accept those terms. Are you? Pyrrhus looked at Constantine for a long moment. Then his gaze found Elara, standing frozen in the doorway. Something passed between them, an entire conversation in a glance. I accept your challenge, Pyrrhus said. We fight now. No. Elara was moving before she could think. No, there has to be another way. There is not. Pyrrhus caught her hands. The old laws are absolute. I cannot refuse a formal challenge without forfeiting my crown, and if I forfeit, the court falls into chaos. Other vampires will fight for dominance. Humans will die in the crossfire. He touched her face. I have to fight him. You could lose. I will not lose. I have lived 400 years. This child has barely seen a century. I am stronger, faster, more experienced. I will win. You cannot know that. I can." He kissed her, quick and hard. "Trust me. I will end this quickly and come back to you. I promise." Then he turned to face Constantine, and Elara saw him transform, saw the courtly scholar vanish, replaced by something ancient and deadly. The vampire king, in truth, 4 centuries of power condensed into lethal focus. The fight was brutal and fast. Constantine was strong, but Pyrrhus was stronger. The younger vampire fought with rage. Pyrrhus fought with cold precision. Within minutes, Constantine was on the ground, Pyrrhus's hand around his throat. "Yield," Pyrrhus said. "Never. Then you choose death." Elara looked away. She heard the sound of breaking bone, heard Constantine's final scream cut short. Then silence. When she looked back, Pyrrhus was standing over the body. His hands were bloody, his face was grim. "Remove him," he told the court, "and let this be a reminder. I am not weak. I am not distracted. I am king, and I will destroy anyone who forgets it." His eyes swept the assembled vampires. "Are there any other challenges?" No one spoke. "Good." He looked at Isadora. "Convene the council. We will discuss the hunter problem and the territory disputes. Immediately. I will show you all exactly how capable I am of governing." Then he walked to Elara, took her hand, and led her back to his chambers. Once the door closed behind them, he sagged. "I am sorry you had to see that," he said quietly. "You killed him. I had no choice. If I had shown mercy, others would have seen it as weakness. More challenges would come." He looked at his bloody hands. "I am Vampire King, Elara. Sometimes that means being ruthless, being frightening, being exactly the monster you fear. I do not fear you. You should. You saw what I did, how easily I ended a life. I saw you protect your court, your people, your territory." She took his hands, bloody as they were. "I saw you do what was necessary. That does not make you a monster. It makes you a king." He stared at her. "You are not horrified?" "I am sad that it came to violence." "But horrified?" "No. Constantine chose to challenge you. He knew the risks." She squeezed his hands. "I trust you, Pyrrhus. All of you. Even the parts that are dangerous." He pulled her into his arms and held her so tightly she could barely breathe. "I do not deserve you. We have established that, but you have me anyway." He laughed, shaky and relieved. "I do, for as long as you will stay. Then you have me for a very long time." The months after Constantine's challenge were busy. Pyrrhus threw himself into governing with renewed focus. He negotiated truces with the hunters, established clearer territory boundaries, and cracked down on vampires who were feeding recklessly. He proved to his court that Elara was not a distraction, but an asset, that he could love and still lead. And he did it all while making time for her, for their lessons, though they had moved far beyond simple grammar, for long nights talking about everything and nothing, for quiet moments when they simply existed together, content in each other's presence. Elara's life had changed completely. She still worked at the library, but now she also advised Pyrrhus on court matters, translated documents, helped negotiate with human authorities who knew about vampire kind. She became known among the immortals as the king's consort, though no official title was ever given. She did not need one. Everyone understood what she meant to Pyrrhus. Her 27th birthday came and went quietly. Pyrrhus gave her a first edition of a book in her grandmother's language, so rare she had only seen references to it in catalogs. They spent the evening reading it together. "I have been thinking," she said later, curled against his side, "about what you said, about the turning." He went still. "Elara, I am not saying I want it now, but I want you to know I am thinking about it, about forever with you, about what that would mean. You are so young. You have so much life ahead of you. I am 27. I am not a child. I know. But you are mortal. You should experience more of your human life before you make such a permanent choice. How much more? How long should I wait? He was quiet for a long moment. Nadia was 63 when she died. She had lived a full life, married, had children and grandchildren, pursued her calling as a healer. When she faced death, she had no regrets about the path she chose. He touched Elara's face. I want that for you. A life rich enough that if you choose immortality, you do so knowing exactly what you are leaving behind. But I do not want those things. I do not want marriage or children or a conventional life. I want you. I want this. You might feel differently in 10 years, in 20. You are allowed to change your mind. And if I do not change my mind, if I am still certain in a decade that I want forever with you, then we will discuss it seriously, but not before. I will not turn you while you are young enough to regret it. His voice was firm. That is my condition. Take the time. Live your human life. If you still want immortality when you have seen enough of mortality, I will give it to you, but not yet. Elara wanted to argue, wanted to insist she knew her own mind, but she understood his position. He had watched Nadia grow old. He knew the value of a fully lived human life. He would not take that from Elara, even if she asked. 10 years, she said. I will wait 10 years, but then we discuss it seriously. Agreed. They sealed the bargain with a kiss. The years passed. Elara grew older while Pyrrhus remained unchanged. She turned 30, then 35. Her work at the library evolved. She became head of the archives, then associate director. She published papers on endangered languages, built a reputation as an expert in her field. And through it all, Pyrrhus was there, constant, devoted. He attended her lectures and celebrated her successes. He made sure she had time for her human life, even as she remained deeply entwined in his world. He never pressured her about the turning, never mentioned the decade-long agreement they had made. But she remembered. And as the years accumulated, she became more and more certain. This was what she wanted. Him, forever. The vampire world with its strange politics and timeless inhabitants. The work she did translating and preserving languages both human and immortal. All of it. On her 37th birthday, she brought it up again. We agreed on 10 years, she said. It has been 10 years. Pyrrhus looked at her across the dinner table. They were in her apartment, which she had kept despite spending most of her time in his chambers. He had cooked for her, because he had learned to cook specifically so she could have warm meals. Vampire King, 4 centuries old, carefully preparing pasta in her tiny kitchen because he loved her. It has, he agreed quietly. Are you certain? More certain than I have ever been about anything. You understand what you will lose: sunlight, aging, the ability to have children if you ever changed your mind about wanting them. A normal human death. I understand. And I am choosing you anyway. Elara. He reached across the table and took her hands. Once it is done, it cannot be undone. You will be vampire, immortal, forever. I know. That is what I want. To be with you. To have time to read every book ever written in my grandmother's language. To see what the world becomes. To love you for centuries instead of just decades. She squeezed his fingers. Turn me, please, make me yours in truth. You have always been mine. Then make it official. He stood, pulling her up with him. I need to prepare. The turning is not something to be done casually. You will need to be strong and healthy. We will need privacy and time. It will take 3 days for the change to complete, and they will not be easy days. I am ready. I will speak to the court, make arrangements. He cupped her face. Are you absolutely certain? There is no shame in changing your mind. I am certain. I love you. I want forever with you. Then you will have it. The turning was scheduled for the following week. Pyrrhus explained the process carefully. He would drain her nearly to the point of death, then feed her his blood. The vampire venom would spread through her system, rewriting her on a cellular level. For 3 days she would be locked in transformation, caught between human and immortal. Most survived. Some did not. He made sure she understood the risks. "I will be with you the entire time," he promised. "I will not leave you for even a moment. I trust you." The night came. Pyrrhus had prepared a room in his chambers, comfortable and private. The court knew what was happening. Some approved, others did not. Elara did not care about their opinions. This was her choice, made with full knowledge and clear intention. She lay down on the bed, and Pyrrhus stretched out beside her. "Last chance to change your mind," he said gently. "I am not changing my mind. Then we begin." He bit her wrist first, drew blood slowly, carefully. She felt the pull of it, the strange intimacy. Then he moved to her throat, bit deeper, drank more. The world started to gray at the edges. She felt herself slipping, her heartbeat slowing, dying. Just before everything went black, Pyrrhus bit his own wrist and pressed it to her lips. "Drink," he commanded. She drank. His blood was cool and strange, and it burned going down. The taste was copper and something darker, something that spoke of centuries and power and immortality. She swallowed as much as she could before darkness took her completely. The 3 days were agony. She was dimly aware of Pyrrhus holding her, speaking to her, keeping her grounded. Her body was tearing itself apart and rebuilding, every cell screaming, every nerve on fire. She wanted to die, wanted it to stop, but underneath the pain was something else. Power, strength, the promise of forever. On the 3rd day, she woke. The world was different, sharper. She could hear conversations 3 rooms away, could smell blood pumping through veins, could feel the minute vibrations in the air as people moved. Her vision was crystalline. Her body felt strong in a way it never had before. And she was hungry, desperately, overwhelmingly hungry. "Easy," Pyrrhus said. He was beside her, looking exactly as he always had. Except now she could see more, could see the tiny movements of his inhuman grace, could sense the power coiled in him. "I have blood for you, fresh. You need to feed." He helped her drink from a crystal glass. The blood was better than anything she had ever tasted, rich and warm and perfect. It eased the hunger enough that she could think clearly. "How do you feel?" Pyrrhus asked. Elara took stock, strong, alive, different. "Good. Strange, but good. Your eyes are pale now, like mine, and your hair has started to lighten. By tomorrow it will be fully white. The transformation is complete. You are vampire." She looked at her hands. They were paler than before, though not yet as white as Pyrrhus's. She could feel the strength in them, could sense that she could crush steel if she wanted to. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For giving me this, for waiting until I was ready, for loving me enough to let me choose. Always." He pulled her close. "You are mine now, truly, for all the centuries to come. And you are mine. I have been since the moment you agreed to teach me." They stayed in his chambers for a week while Elara adjusted to her new body. Pyrrhus taught her control, how to manage the hunger, how to move with vampire grace instead of crashing into things, how to moderate her new strength so she did not accidentally break everything she touched. It was harder than she expected. Her body wanted to move faster than her brain could process. She shattered 3 glasses before she learned the right amount of pressure. She accidentally put her hand through a wall when she lost her temper. But Pyrrhus was patient. He had centuries of experience, and he used all of it to help her learn. "You are doing well," he told her on the 5th day. "Most newborn vampires take months to achieve this level of control. You are adapting quickly. I had a good teacher. You had strong motivation, and a mind already trained in discipline." He smiled. "The years you spent in careful archival work have served you well." When she finally emerged from his chambers, the court gathered to see her. Elara stood beside Pyrrhus, and she felt their assessment, saw them measure her with new eyes. She was one of them now, vampire, immortal, the king's consort in truth. "Lady Elara," Isidore said formally, "welcome to eternity. Thank you." You will need training, combat skills, court protocol, the history of our kind. It is no small thing to stand beside the king. I am willing to learn. Good. Isidora inclined her head. We will begin tomorrow. The next years were a whirlwind. Elara learned to fight, to navigate vampire politics, to use her new abilities. She discovered she had a gift for strategy, honed by years of puzzle solving in archives. She became one of Pyrrhus's most trusted advisors. The court, which had been skeptical at first, slowly accepted her. She proved herself capable, clever, worthy of her position. And every night, Pyrrhus still wrote her name. Even though she was vampire now, even though forever was guaranteed, he wrote Elara at the top of his practice pages and refused to erase it. A habit from their early lessons that had become ritual. Proof that he had loved her when she was mortal and loved her still now that she was not. 50 years passed, then 100. The world changed around them. Technology advanced, cities grew. But Elara and Pyrrhus remained constant. They read together, governed together, loved together. The court became hers as much as his. The territory thrived under their joint leadership. She never regretted her choice, not once. Every decade that passed only confirmed that she had made the right decision. This life, strange and immortal as it was, suited her. She continued her work with languages, now with centuries to pursue it. She catalogued vampire dialects, human tongues, everything she could find, built an archive that would outlast nations, and she had Pyrrhus, her king, her partner, her love. He was exactly as he had promised to be devoted, protective, endlessly patient. They grew together in ways mortal couples never could. Learned each other over lifetimes instead of just years. 200 years after her turning, they were in his study. She was translating a newly discovered text. He was reviewing territory reports. Comfortable silence stretched between them, the kind that only came from centuries of companionship. "Do you ever regret it?" Pyrrhus asked suddenly. "Choosing immortality, choosing me." Elara looked up from her work. "Never." "Why would you ask that?" "Because you gave up so much. Sunlight, a human lifespan, the possibility of children. And I gained so much more. Time with you, purpose, a family in the court." She set down her pen. "I have loved you for 200 years. I will love you for 200 more and 200 after that. I have never doubted my choice. Not even when things are difficult, when court politics become exhausting or when we face threats. Especially not then, because we face it together." She crossed to him, settled in his lap. "Why are you questioning this now?" "Because I wrote your name today and I thought about the first time I did it. How uncertain I was. How afraid that you would realize what I was and leave. How grateful I was that you stayed." He touched her face. "I want to make sure you are still grateful too." "I am, every day, every century." She kissed him softly. "You gave me forever, Pyrrhus. I will spend it showing you how thankful I am." He pulled her closer, and they stayed like that for a long time. Two immortals who had found each other across the impossible divide of human and vampire, who had built something that would outlast empires. Eventually, Elara returned to her translation work. Pyrrhus went back to his reports. But first, he pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. At the top, in the old tongue she had taught him so long ago, he wrote her name. Elara. Careful and beautiful and permanent. She watched him do it and smiled. Some things never changed, not in 200 years, not in 2000. She had taught the vampire king to read her language. He had written her name first and never erased it. And now they had forever to keep writing their story, one careful letter at a time. The centuries stretched ahead of them like a promise, like a gift. They would fill them with words and love and the quiet joy of partnership. They would govern their territory with wisdom earned through immortal experience. They would preserve languages and knowledge for future generations. They would face whatever challenges came together. And every night, Pyrrhus would write her name, a reminder of where they started, a promise of where they would go. Elara leaned against him and watched the ink dry on the page. Her name in her grandmother's tongue, written by the hand of a vampire king who had loved her enough to learn. who loved her still, who would love her forever. It was more than enough. It was everything.